I know so many people that are so passionate about the idea of archiving, the genre and the culture, and this is an important piece of that. And so, like I said, it is, fun project, something that, to do and put it all together and put it out there, but I think it's very valuable, and I appreciate the work. All right, let's kick it off. Gentlemen,
Yeah.
thank you both for coming on to the show to talk about this book that I have in my hand, this wonderful tome that you were very gracious enough to send me a copy to look at, and I've been looking forward to talking to you both about this book. So if you please, I could read your bios, but a lot of times we do something today that we wrote, we didn't write in the bio yesterday. So if you could just introduce yourselves the way you'd like to be presented to the world.
Oh, Dev?
Hi, I'm Deverill Weeks. I'm a LA-based photographer. I've been here about 40 years, and I've worked predominantly in entertainment.
All right. Martin?
My name is Martin Pearson. Is it 40, Dev? I think you're making that up. But I have also been here a long time. I'm calling it 27, but it's around 30 years. Been here quite a while. I started out as a journalist, started out as a music journalist for the most part, and sort of evolved into writing about all kinds of things. Found myself here in the US in, a golden era for hip hop, but also a golden era for imagine a world where everything isn't at your fingertips, where you can't just search everything. So I was here in LA and used to work for a lot of the UK press back then. And I've evolved into working in documentaries for all kinds of people, from CNN to National Geographic to Discover, a lot of Discovery Channel stuff. Constantly evolving. And the book is part of that.
Very good. I have a soft spot in my heart for journalists, as I have been one.
I saw that.
I didn't work. I worked for a news weekly, actually in Long Island, the Long Island Press. So
Very
it was,
cool.
It was when news weeklies were still a thing, and of course, they were always very arts and entertainment focused. They were always very, anti big corporate, behemoth, newspapers. The scrappy, journalists that would dig in the trenches and call out corrupt cops and and things like that. So I had a great time in my journalism days.
Very cool.
And then I broke off to kind of do my own stuff in music journalism as well. So I've been independent ever since. But yeah, we all have I think some things in common. The book Hip Hop Rising: Profiles of the 90s is, like you mentioned, a look at the golden era of hip hop. You were doing you were writing, and you were doing a lot of profiles at the time. Y'all were working together because you have all the pictures. Was this all? It's one thing I didn't understand. Was it all done together, or did you have pictures and you have writing, and then later on came together?
No, mostly it was together.
Where did this unholy alignment come from?
Well, we connected early on. I mean, we met through mutual friends. Deverill actually comes from a very similar part of Southeast London area as me, but we didn't know each other back home. I was just hustling, trying to pay my rent. When I first moved here, and I worked a lot for a magazine called Hip Hop Connection. An old friend of mine, Andy Cowan, used to run that magazine, which it holds the record for being the longest running dedicated hip hop magazine, something like that. There's a record there. It started very early. I mean, it started as a fanzine pretty much. So yeah, most of this work was done in conjunction. Some of it Deverill did, either separately or sort of, I wasn't at the shoot and things like that. But yeah, no, mostly we stumble into this world together,
Yeah.
I was very lucky because I met Martin through, I was interning at Roger Corman's studio, the filmmaker Roger Corman, and I got to meet Martin precariously through that. And then I'd just come out of photography school, so it was really the first work I ever did as a photographer.
Really?
What a gift! I'd always wanted to shoot some sort of, like ska or punk rock, but like we kind of, I don't know. I think Martin's kind of a genius because it was all Martin was driving all this, but these guys had these super big household names. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
It was these were literally shooting.
Genius might be pushing it. I think I just happened to be in the right place, right time. I was a fan of hip hop from when I first heard it as a little, kid. I was thinking about this earlier. I mean, I love a good story. That's really kind of the essence of everything. Hip hop for me, I mean, Grandmaster Flash, that song hit me hard. I mean, not only because a couple of things. I think it was like, we could debate this topic. I think that hip hop was the only newly invented music form in our lifetimes, or maybe in several lifetimes. Um, Understanding it all evolves from something else, but I mean, as a little snotty nosed kid, it sort of blew my socks off because something so different, something so lyrically and verbal, and I think that's what always appealed to me.
Right.
I can't remember, that wasn't really a question, was it? But there you go.
No, that's great. And again, as a writer, someone who's naturally inclined to that, I don't know if that has some other attraction to us. I know people that, are, that were coming up and in that their musical lives, we figure out when we play band in school or whatever the case may be, but to hear something like you said that's so full of imagery and so full of perspectives, I don't know, it always, I mean, for many of the same reasons that appeal to everybody in the world.
Right, for sure. But I think maybe as a writer, as a fellow writer, as someone who deals with words, you kind of have that special bond for just that I mean, the succinctness of the storytelling, the cleverness of the story, originality, and I should add, the political aspects and the kind of, the voice of sort of resistance, which I think, especially in that era, hip hop was, and still to a little bit, but there's some, such.
Yeah, and let me ask you about that, because some of the folks that you profile that you listed in this book, and again, I've explained this already, but basically, the book is you brought your old articles back to life, right? So you had all these old profiles in mostly one or two places, but scattered around, right? And then you said, let me compile them back into this book. So this is not everything you've done, but like sort of select.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah, and I mean, I just felt like it was.
So
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, so the ones you picked, right? Obviously, many household names, as you say. A couple that are probably a little bit lesser known to people that aren't like diehard hip hop heads, right? Which is great. Why did you pick the ones that you did, first of all, and then secondly, well, I'll ask you that first because I'll follow up with that. Why did you pick the ones you did? Had you? So in my book, my book is basically a compilation of interviews I've done on the show, and so in my mind, I sequenced it like one would sequence an album, right? Because you want me to tell a story. Is that kind of the same kind of idea, to try to get an overview of everything you were picking up?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I mean, I think partly picture. If we had, honestly, if we had words and pictures, it's like that's in the book, and we got great pictures and great words.
That's
and
good.
Yeah, there are absolutely tracks in here. I mean, there are things which. Bear in mind, I didn't know where any of this was heading, right? So you don't know if you're talking to a future household name or a future one-hit wonder. And I love the fact there are some tracks in here which probably only, you and I and people who lived through that era would remember those tracks. I mean, they're not really out there in the world, but they're still great tracks. They age so well. I think this whole book, I mean, how some things you watch from 20, 30 years ago, whether it be a movie or a sitcom or whatever, and they just like, ouch. It just does not feel right. This stuff feels like vintage.
Well.
I mean, this age is like a fine wine, because I don't think many of these tracks have, sound dated. So the selection was kind of random. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna say I'm today years old when I found out why the Diggable Planets named themselves after bugs. Like, so I just learned that now, like, or recently so we're still learning things. So you say it's vintage, but it's still like stuff that not even us heads don't always know. Deverill, you said this was sort of your early work as a photographer, and were you also sort of a fan of the music, or this is just when you were cutting your teeth on the music too?
Do you know what's really funny is when you guys were talking, I was remembering, like, before I came out to LA, how much that music was playing in clubs where it was like really oddly like different types of clubs. Like it was kind of cross-pollinating everything, and it was almost uncensored in a weird way. I mean, when you agree, Martin, there were like nightclubs you would go to, like the Fridge in Brixton, and they were all playing this music because it was just so fresh and exciting. That was really amazing. And one of the things, to your second question, that I wanted to say was, Martin and I really struggled because we wanted to try. We have some really great images and some great interviews, but they wouldn't match. Like, there were certain artists that we did, and I think one of the things that Martin did really well was I think he also tried to pick. I think he's underselling how he really laid out the book a little bit, because I think he was trying to really sort of show artists who were influential to other artists,
Yep, yep,
and
yep. That makes
affected
sense.
them particularly in some way. So there are names that affected people that never really broke out in the way they should have.
I mean, and to answer your question, back to the order of things. I mean, I honestly didn't know. I didn't want to put it in chronological order. I wanted to kind of scatter my, my A-list stars, across the book. So I think it's start with ice, end with ice, had some symmetry. But as you go through, there's quite a lot of little connections that I didn't know about until I started. I mean, there are people who produced, I forget the guy's name, produced some of the Freestyle Fellowship's album, who went on to, I think he produced, wasn't Diggables, but it was maybe, I'm forgetting who it was, but there are these little connections. And the best connection that popped out was I interviewed, and talk about one-hit wonders or names that maybe no one really knows anymore. The Hooligans, right? Couple of white kids from Beverly Hills here. Dude ended up being the Alchemist, who is like, my son is 21 years old. He's like, you interviewed the Alchemist? And I just love that, so much of this stuff, even if it was a one-hit wonder or a flash in the pan, it didn't end there, because most of these people, they had talent. Again,
And you were a cool dad.
I try. I ask my son; he probably objects usually, but yeah, there are connections within these that you wouldn't know, and you can see a sort of it's a diaspora of artists from this period when, I mean, hip hop was around, it was big, but it wasn't a household name. It wasn't, I used to freelance for a lot of different magazines, and it was much harder for me to place hip hop interviews in different territories across the world. Whereas if I interviewed Prince, it'd sell everywhere. Because people were a little scared. Honestly, there's a little sort of intimidated, scared, or just ignorance, I guess. So,
yeah, for sure. I mean, especially when you talk about, like, you have an early Wu-Tang Clan, interview, which is, and I remember being like in New York when Wu-Tang first started coming out, and even rap people were like, "What's this?" Like, even we were like, are we being robbed, or is this a performance? Like,
I know, and the interview was, I don't know if it was, you could call it an interview. I'd ask a question, they would tell me whatever the hell they wanted to tell me anyway. And I mean, just that whole sort of, I mean, I thought it was awesome, as I think I said in the piece, but I mean, I didn't. It could have been gone the next day, but it turned into obviously one of my favorite bands. Honestly, the originality in that.
I think one of the things that was interesting for Martin and I was that we both got to have these very unique experiences. I mean, in the book where he talks about, that was amazing to be with Ice-T the day.
right.
O.J. Simpson.
We're going to have to interrupt this call. I understand we're going to go to a live picture in Los Angeles. Is that correct? Okay. This is Interstate 5, and this is courtesy of KCALR, one of our LA affiliates. Police believe that O.J. Simpson is in that car.
Martin, what was the name of Ice-T's dogs?
And then I forget the other one.
That's right. Convict.
Something like that. Yeah. I mean, he's a legend, and I mean, he remains a legend. And I think, I mean, even then, I mean, what's interesting, you talk to these people, top guy, dude. I mean, even then, you could see his sort of strategizing and playing out. Same with Cube. I read a book, not my book, but I read a book about the hip hop business recently, and I've got it on my bookshelf there. And they talked about how Ice-T was like in Warner Brothers early on as kind of like the dude that all the execs could ask about this strange new thing, and he just, smart guy, placed himself in the right place. I guess you'd call it networking, but you're just being the go-to guy. And I mean, I think that then when he had Killer, and Warner Brothers stood up for him amazingly, and that's worth noting.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers in 1990s stood up and said, "No, we can do this." Do you think Warner Brothers would stand up and do that now?
I don't think so. They probably would not. They probably would not. Yeah.
I would say one of the things that was also interesting, Manny, was that we were in a situation where, like, he was super smart, he was super intelligent. You could also see how clever he was. Like, the week after, I don't think Martin was with me, I went to Coolio's house, and Gangsta's Paradise was huge. But Ice-T's living in Beverly Hills, and Coolio's still living in South Central. And that's like the business. He had a really good business mind.
Hey, he was, once a hustler. Like you take your entrepreneurial smarts with you.
Yeah.
Totally.
Smart guy's a smart guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to give props to Deverill, by the way, for the photography here. I mean, we can all remember
That's great.
when digital didn't exist, right? The stress involved in taking a picture on the fly. We had very little sort of control over, some of them are studio shots, but mostly it's just a grab shot in the day in the back of a parking lot somewhere. And they're real and they're raw and they're original, and they're not perfect because you're not taking 800 shots, picking them on the fly, treating them with, and I love the fact that it's like the equivalent of, sort of a factory made item versus a handcrafted artisanal something.
Yeah.
And as I say,
it's not that they're not photo shoots. I mean, they are, but they're not like in the sense that we see things. Everything is lighting, and you have to get or even like fabricated. Like, well, we got to make it look like we're in a desert, like whatever. It's like it was you and them. In most of these, it's like they're just there. You take a great shot. It's all black and white, right? Everything's black and white.
Yeah,
It's great shots.
I remember when we were putting the book together, where I went under my house and I was looking, because I actually had a leak that destroyed, actually, unfortunately, a lot of really wonderful images. But I found this picture of the Beastie Boys, and I was like, Martin, I found this and that was them at the farmers market, and that day was really interesting because I was just reading it before and Martin's sort of nicely saying that they could be really difficult, honestly. They were cool, but they were going to do what they wanted to do, right? And you just had to go with it. But they did give us everything we wanted. So fair props.
Yeah.
Well, I think you got to be a certain type of journalist to also be able to work under those conditions. You know what I mean?
Right, for sure. Well, those guys, but the Beastie Boys particularly, they were one of the few in the book who'd had the mega success, before I interviewed them, and they were very jaded by the press and by the British press in particular, so that probably didn't help me. But what else can we tell you, Manny? We had a lot of fun doing it, I tell you. And
I want to see. You mentioned being from Britain, coming over the States, and so and one of the things that you spoke to certainly came up in a few of the conversations was sort of like the political nature of America, of the music business, of censorship, of police brutality. These topics came up several times, and again, if you interviewed any of them today, unfortunately, we'd be talking about the same stuff. What did speaking to rappers specifically give a couple of, Brits a perspective on that you wouldn't have picked up listening to the nightly news or any other kind of media?
Well, everything in a way. Prior to even coming here, I think music in general, and that would apply to hip hop and also some of my other musical tastes, sort of was formational in my political awakening. Actually, it was actually reggae music when I was about 14 years old. One of my high school teachers decided to cancel class for the day and just teach us about Bob Marley. And I just kind of opened my eyes to the power of music to tell a political message. I think, I think in this situation, I don't want to say I saw my job as educating my audience, but kind of, I was already somewhat politically enlightened. So when I talk to the lynch mob, for example, and we're talking about busing and integration, it's not something that people knew about. Well, quite honestly, I don't think most white Americans knew much about how that felt as a black man in America in the 70s. I guess that, in everything I've done, if you give me a world and a subculture that I don't really know much about, I'm going to want to find out what I can. The other thing, obviously, that comes through is the politics of the record industry. And I think, a lot of these people did not make the money they should have made, right?
Right.
I had this wild experience. I can't remember who it was with, but what you also forget is that these guys were in the news a lot, right? So I think it might have been, I went to shoot Snoop one time, And I went, like there was the record play, the video place, or the place where we were doing it. I went up to the gate, and there's all these paparazzi outside, just because he was on trial for murder or something.
right.
It was really like
Mhm.
went in, and I couldn't get my car. I had to park on the street, so I walked in. They kind of didn't know I was a photographer, so I just walked in, did my thing. And as I was coming out, all these guys were around me, just yelling at me like, "What's he doing? What's it?" And I just thought, these guys are under so much pressure all the time. And obviously, they handle it really well, and they know what they're doing. But it made me very aware. Like these guys were in the news a lot for not necessarily things they would have maybe wanted to be in the news for.
Right.
That was kind of a wild moment. And I just remember these guys all yelling, "Are they doing drugs in there?" And I was like, I just put my head down and just kept walking and got on the car and left.
Right.
I've never had an experience like that.
Now they all work for TMZ. Those people, those
Yeah.
same people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That is interesting to be, and again, to see them at the, being talked about by the president, like these people, these are just artists. These are just like these rappers, but to have like that kind of profile and be on the forefront. I mean, obviously in Ice-T's case, 2 Live Crew, who you don't have in the book, but,
Mhm.
obviously in the fighting for censorship, fighting for the First Amendment. That's around, it was all around that time.
It was all around that time. And, as like I said before, the fact that Warner Brothers, I mean, the inside story that was Ice to you actually said, "All right, never mind, we'll take it off." He actually backed down. I think the head of Warner's was prepared to go to the mat for it, which, well, I know I'm repeating myself, but you can edit it. But, imagine a corporate media owner today. Well, we don't have to imagine this because we've seen every corporate owner of media bend over and fold over before our eyes over the last few months.
Yeah.
So I think that's a remarkable time. And the degree to which, isn't it funny? Things change, they stay the same. I mean, it was the race card. I mean, it's as old as the hills.
Yep.
It was the race card. It was the Willie Horton onto 2 Live Crew, onto Ice-T, and where are we now? Same card being played over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what's also interesting though? I always felt that everyone we worked with really did let us do our job, or at least me. Like we were very like welcomed in, and and weirdly, I don't know if there's any photographers who listen to the podcast, but there's 2 ways I work, which is either I do tons of research on someone, or I kind of know who they are, and I don't want to, I don't want to get intimidated by them, by like
Right,
almost
okay.
becoming like, I don't know if you guys have that as a journalist, where you're like, I really like you, and so. And in some ways, I felt like I would vacillate on that. And sometimes I would really do a lot of research on these guys. But also, the truth is about, as you're both former journalists, there are people who just walk in front of the camera and they're so electric. You look like a good photographer no matter what you do. You just look like you know what you're doing. And I always say that to my assistants now. I'm like, we're going to be a good photographer today because and all the stuff, especially with Ice Cube, I think he had very much an awareness of what he wanted to sell and how he was going to sell it. Would you agree with that, Martin? Like he knew, I'm going to be this guy at this age. And then towards the end, I actually photographed a film he produced, I think called Players Club. And he was sort of changing. Like he was like, I'm done. Like it was almost like I'm metamorphosizing myself.
Right.
Mhm.
Evolving.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, they succeeded in a very tough business at a very tough time because they knew how to play that game. And I mean, honestly, if you look at, from a Queen Latifah to Cube to T, did they see the writing on the wall and realize? I think they did, that, you're just not, records are not going to be making you money in the future, so you better diversify.
Yeah.
Snoop even as well. I mean, Snoop's. I'd love to know how much they make from their music versus everything else these days, but I'm sure it's a tiny fraction.
Yeah.
I forget what I was going with that, but yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you both mentioned that you've gone on to do other things. You didn't stay, just writing about rap for your entire careers. You've gone on to do other things. What did your time with a bunch of these, these wild and crazy rap kids. What did you take from that time that you then maybe use later in life? Did it give you some kind of insight, or just some kind of perspective?
It
Interesting.
was entrepreneurial. It was
Say again?
It was entrepreneurialism. I produced a movie with my wife. We now have a podcast called Revamped with Juliet Landau. We're doing well. That you just go and do things. Go and do it, make it. And weirdly, really what's really important is to be authentic with yourself and with your audience. I don't know if you have that, man, but like we don't do anything that we don't believe is right for what we truly believe is right in ourselves. That's the most important thing, I think. And I think I took that from. I also loved. I mean, Martin was talking about Bob Marley. I think, in a way, some of these guys will be remembered as kind of prophets of Bob Marley. Like they really were capturing something that we'd never seen before. That's super exciting, and it was theirs, and that's what I took from it. What about you, Martin?
I mean, I think that, and in everything else I've done, is that the ability to meet someone cold and connect with them, and that what makes them tick. I don't know if that's exclusive to hip hop by any stretch of the imagination, but and looking back, I think the life lesson is you never know where things are going to head. You may walk into some interview and think this is, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I was trying to hustle a living, right? So I'm like, wherever you want me to go, I'll go, I'll do it. So I did a bunch of other stuff. And you don't know, like I said, you get, I think I spoke to Wu-Tang Clan on the phone. I might have been back in the UK at that time. Got off the phone, laughed, kind of shook my head and thought, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to make that work. And, I could have been it. And I just love the fact, the first picture in the book, Dev's picture of Snoop, I think is like, the Mona Lisa of the era. I mean, that's a classic picture. And the fact, as I say in the book, and Manny, I don't know if you agree, but did we ever think in the early 90s that these guys were going to be, on the Olympics?
Right.
I mean, it is worth pinching yourself and saying, how unlikely was that in 1993?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And again, that's why it's so nice to see the throwbacks. Like, this is really interesting work to see the pictures, as we remember them as fans, right? Because now that you're bringing up nostalgia, it's sparking that but also hearing their words and then knowing like where they are now. Some of the names that are still around are still big enough to be recognized. It's really fascinating. It's sociological. Like it's a, you know what I mean? It's a study in
I'd like to think so. Yeah. Without getting, I mean, the other thing that's huge in my mind, and I think this is, this era has a special place for us who lived it and a special place for a lot of people who didn't. And I think, not to get all misty-eyed about it, but it's like the analog era. You can't go and search many Ice Cube interviews from 1993 because most of those magazines were not online. Certainly with the pictures, it's the same thing. And I think Dev and I have talked about this quite a lot. This era before things were just a click away, before everything was, great music being released now, no doubt, but I think it just comes and goes. It doesn't have that lasting kind of, I used to go around and hunt for records. If I found one, you'd hold it in your hand, and I'd actually love the fact,
that's right.
Apart from anything else, that we've made something that's not a click, not a virtual anything. It's a real book that I can hold in my hands and say, this happened. That's what I enjoy about it.
It's actually bringing that up, Martin, because one of the things also I remember is like you'd be in people's houses and you would see their record collections, and you'd see how vast these record collections were, and how knowledgeable they were about music, and like that's where I think so much of that. But they would be. I remember being in people's houses, and I should have taken a bit. Like you don't do it. Like I should have just taken a picture, like walls and walls of vinyl.
Right.
I'll ask you, man, who was your favorite interview? What was one of the formative interviews you did with someone?
Man, I like talking to Ralph McDaniels, who from Video Music Box, right? Because he was such a pioneer of that, of really honestly of music videos and hip hop, and did it before MTV Raps, and he had Video Music Box. We used to run home and watch it on the UHF channel, the second, the thing that we had to watch and go. Hopefully because I was on Long Island, so we had to get the antennas just right. but then like to speak to him later as a contemporary as well. Like we're about to say he's a little bit older. We all came up during this thing together. Again, that's I'm a son of a sociologist, so it's where I come, where I bring these aspects, into it. He's a professor, but I think I learned from that, like to really, look at the scope of someone's career, but also do what you've done in this book, which is to tie it to like what's going on in the world around them. What's happening in the world at that time. So some of these interviews, like you said, O.J. Simpson happening that day, like these musicians, especially in that age when we weren't ruled by social media, we weren't ruled by algorithms. You really did. They didn't live in a vacuum. They didn't come from a vacuum. They were affected by what was happening around them, for better or for worse. And that's where I think you get, Dev, like you said, some of the authenticity of these artists, where they weren't. I mean, sure, there's embellishment, there's putting out a little bit of a show, doing a little bit of embellishing. But a lot of these guys at this time were really at an age in hip hop, in rap, where you could just say whatever the hell you wanted to, and not have to tailor it to some bigger agenda that, either the record label wants you to do more of this, less of that, or what looks good on social media. And bringing us back to that time is, through this book, reminds me of like those kind of interviews where I could talk to someone and say, well, what was happening in the landscape around you and your career at that time in the world, and how did it then affect where you went? And I think we see some of that, showing up in some of these interviews in your book as well.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, no, it was. I also think you could just see, like Cube was one of the smartest people I met, even then, in terms of his sort of savviness and playing the game. Honestly, playing the press game.
Yeah.
And I also, some interviews I also lost some of these things. Some discs got corrupted. I interviewed Mary J. Blige for one of her first, a very real love. Such a sweetheart. And so didn't know how to play the game. I mean, she got very smart as time went on, but it was like, I mean, someone just had an amazing voice, and they just, and obviously, the musical genres came together at that time in that kind of New Jack Swing kind of vibe. And she was right place, right time. But no offense, Mary J. Blige, I love her, but she was just so green at that point, because literally straight, first just being signed, I think, and no one told her what she's supposed to do. What else?
And I was gonna,
I had an experience with a band. I'm not going to say which band, but the executives were there, and the lead singer refused to shake hands with them. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty intense. That's a pretty good. And the band went on. They were successful, but they did actually change the
Maybe
lead singer.
with another label, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Interesting.
It was also wild that there was a kind of you were this person. You did this thing, and you ended up here, and then you're thrown into this world.
There's so many of us like of an age where we look back, especially like late 80s, early 90s, and we lament that the hip hop rap went a different direction. And for better, for worse, it's going to always evolve, and that's fine. I think that what we're circling around here was, there was a time when the record industries, and they were making money, and they're putting these people out there, and it was great, but they didn't quite know what they were doing with them and how to really, right? So once they said, oh, we're not co-opting these people enough. We have we can now mold this in a direction. And that's sort of when it went, a little bit into that, became the priority. But I think for a little while it was, they just didn't know what they were doing.
You're a minute. I have to tell you something that's really crazy. So one of the guys I shot someone huge for, like a huge hip hop artist. The next week, the same publicist was on Pat Boone. We photographed Pat Boone. Like it was just music.
Don't know what they're doing. Yeah. No. And again, when they figured it out, again, I think that was to the detriment of the genre, because now you can package it. Now you can lowest common denominator it, and make it, that's why everything's so we got sucked up into that. But I think it was that really interesting time where these artists could be big enough that they would reach the zeitgeist, reach into mainstream America before they were, for lack of a better term, policed in how they were, we get a lot, we get conscious rap, we get, gangster rap, we got all this stuff. And then it's not that, there's this talk of whether it was, did the genre get dumbed down on purpose? Was it being dumbed down by, political forces to try to stop some of this creativity and imagination and revolutionary talk? Whether it was purposeful or not, it made sense to do it from a business standpoint, because you just want to, now mass market and create this, the churn, just lemmings. Let's pop it.
Totally.
So yeah. So what I love about, I think the most important thing, if you'll let me be so presumptuous, the most important thing about this book is what you just touched on, that we're losing the archives, right? A lot of the pictures, you have people here that are passed away, right? They're not even, they can't even talk anymore. And and as you say, like a lot of the stuff, these magazines didn't have their archives. We talked to a lot of great hip hop archivists, Sarita Gates, who I haven't talked to yet, but I know her. We've talked off, not on the show, is collecting all of the old like hip hop magazines, the Source and the, Word Ups and like, all these because no one thought to do that.
Right.
And the fact that y'all have some stuff and you decide let's package it in a way that kind of can live on, is just so important to the culture. You're seeing now hip hop websites, MTV News goes offline and takes down all the archives. Hip Hop DX just went off. The Internet Archive lost the Dat Piff mixtape archives. Like it's gone. They're just gone. So for you to say, listen, these artists, the respect you give these artists for saying that their words are worthy of saving all these years, first of all, and then taking your time and maybe some expense, putting them back out into the world is just, it's such an honorable, noble thing to do for the genre and for the culture. And so on behalf of people who love the cultures, as y'all do, thanks.
Well, thank you. I mean, I don't know if it's for it was just fun to do. And I mean, it's just, you do stuff through your career. It can't, well, it means a lot now. It's all together in one. It was all sitting in a drive on I can't tell you how it was like archaeology getting some of this back pulling it back from the dead, because it's not easy. And I just love the fact Deverill gave me a lot of his old boxes to sort of sort through and collate this stuff. And it just tickled me over and over again. It's like, oh yeah, you had to take the picture. You had to drive to the developer, you had to write handwritten instructions. I feel like a dinosaur here, but so cool. I think the stuff had more value in a way because it just, everything's just click, click, click. We can take 5,000 pictures that are all absolutely perfect. We can throw them through every processor under the sun and you do everything under the thing, but you weren't right there at that 1/60th of a second when Cube looks into the camera in that way.
That's right. Deverill, I will say this though. I have recently, because, obviously you get to a certain age now. So now I like birds. And now I'm a birder and I do all that stuff now, right? But now I'm a halfway decent photographer, and I did some event photography when I was running my own magazine, Birthplace Magazine. I was covering New York, so I went to events and I got a little decent. Oh, this lens for this low light, this kind of da da da. Okay, still digital, but I've taken pictures all my life. But taking pictures of birds, that's hard to do. That's hard to do. So there's only so much cleaning up. So it's still kind of a skill that you could do as a photographer that we still kind of harkens back to that kind of age.
Absolutely. I actually have to say, one of my friends does that. And one of the things I was thinking about when that picture that Martin was talking about of Snoop, what was going on was I went to this space, I bought the background and everything and set it all up. But he was with, was it Craig Mack, right? Like he was with Craig Mack. And the picture of Craig Mack outsold the picture of Snoop for the first 3 years. Isn't that crazy?
Interesting.
Because there was no pictures of him.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even, honestly,
so anytime they needed a Craig Mack photo, it's yours. Yeah.
But it was really odd that, like, it was just because you're talking about what I was getting what I could get. Snoop came over to my area where I was in my photography for like an hour. Craig Mack came over for 10 minutes and gone. If you've been like in those situations. But I also found, I think it's also interesting with that kind of photography as well, is that sometimes the situation is given to you. So Martin was talking about the lynch mob. We shot them on the street corner that meant something to them because it was their neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like, that was really interesting to me, like to be there. And I always felt that in terms of understanding what their participation with you was, I don't think I ever got to know anyone really. Like, I don't know if you ever had that when you were as a photographer, but they came in and they did exactly. They really bought themselves. They weren't filtered. That's the thing you're really talking about.
Yeah.
Not filtered. There was not like a published going, no, you can't do that. It mustn't do. They were just doing what they wanted to do, and then they were gone. It was kind of amazing.
So, as someone coming up like around the age of a lot of these artists, I was a rapper. I had my boys. We did our thing. We were in this, in the basement. Rap. We was banging on the lunch table, all that stuff. A lot of these pictures look like us, like that time. You know what I mean? And that's why I like about it. It was just us. It was just rappers having fun, making music, doing this fun thing, and you capture that essence so well with these photographs. Man, it was really cool. You're really cool to go through this.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and another random thing. I actually have friends with Micah 9 from Freestyle. He goes to the bar down here where I go all the time. He's a friend of mine. And I got to give him the book. I got to give him the book, and it's just, I don't care how many books they sell. I care the fact I got to give the book to the guy I met when he was 22 years old on the roof of Island Records. And, we've shared a bit of love over that. Who, by the way, you should have Freestyle on your show. Freestyle are one of the most, I would happily send you over to Micah.
That'd be very cool. Yeah, that's definitely something I should do. Absolutely. Yeah, again, just great memory lane, but also and again, seeing where some of these artists are now. I mean, I know they're still around doing stuff, you know what I mean? It's very cool. I got to see the Alcoholics recently, you know what I mean? Like, so it's
absolutely. Which I saw Far Side recently. I saw Far Side as well over here. Yeah. And cool. I think they might have done Far Side Alcohol. Oh no, Far Side and Diggables, I think, went out together as well. But yeah.
I got a friend who's an independent artist named Silent Night, who's also pretty dope. He was on Raucous Records right before it closed down. He's done songs with Inspector Deck. He's done songs with a bunch of people. He just did a song with Ladybug. So I was like,
that's so fun.
Still out here doing the stuff. Still people out here doing this great music, and it's great to to see all sides of it. I love the history and the nostalgia, but it also reminds us that some of these people are still making music, and we can go support them today also.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, tell me the things as we wrap. Tell me the things that you guys are doing now, just to what are you doing in life, and where do you, if you want to point anyone to anywhere beside the book, and then where can we get the book?
Well, first and most important, you can get the book on. You can email me directly at hiphoprisingbook@gmail.com. You can go to Etsy, the Hip Hop Rising store, or you can go to Amazon. So they're all there. But come to me direct, and it'll be the best way. Right now, I'm actually making a documentary about a shooting that happened here in Venice 10 years ago. LAPD killed a guy, unarmed guy, shot him twice in the back. Outside a bar, which I go to quite frequently. And that police officer is charged and is going to be tried for murder, which never happens. Happened once before in history. If he's convicted, it will be the first time in history an LAPD officer has been convicted of killing someone, which they do with alarming frequency.
I've seen 6 minutes of it. It's really amazing. It makes you cry. It will literally bring you to tears. The bit I saw, so powerful and unbelievable and unreal.
Thank you, Deverill. You're so kind. I mean, I just honestly, as you know, the TV business is kind of up in the air. I've worked for all kinds of people over the years, but this is, it's the book actually was a bit of an impetus for me to say, you know what, in my experience and in my career to date, there's a lot of stuff that I can, lean on to do my own thing, not to go get hired by a corporation to make their stuff.
That's very hip. That's very hip hop of you.
I guess so.
That's very hip hop.
I wouldn't even go that far, but sure. No, well, it's true. I mean,
it is.
Just do it anyway, right?
Yep. And as I say, you said you saw the TED Talk where I say, it's the remix. It's take a little bit of this, take a little bit of that. It's an unholy combination, and then you make magical stuff happen out of two things that maybe wouldn't have been thought to be put together. So keep doing that. And this sounds like a story that needs to be told. Unfortunately, it's like some of the work I do on my other projects where I'm doing a lot of reporting on social justice issues, and it's the kind of work we wish we didn't have to do.
Yeah, no, I know. And I mean, it's the kind of work that doesn't get stories that don't get told. And I guess that's another common theme. Back then, these were stories that weren't getting told, and I was, honored to do it. Dev, by the way, is doing amazing things now, so Dev should jump in. He's a podcast.
I made a film a couple of years ago with my wife called A Place Among the Dead that has Gary Oldman in it, and Ron Perlman, and Anne Rice. And we also have a podcast called Revamped with Juliet Landau. My wife was on a show called Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Sure.
first one that was, well, this is the first podcast that was hosted by someone who's on the show, and we've had amazing people on that, and it's been super, super fun to revamp Juliet Landau. I mean, I've been shooting a bunch as well. I'm still shooting, luckily, which is really, really great. And it's very interesting because doing this, between us, I went and bought I bought 3 film cameras, and I started shooting film again. And I'm doing the project for myself that's just on film because I wanted to feel that feeling again that we used to have, right? And now I understand why kids love vinyl. And
I was just about to say.
I get it. Like, there's something very pure about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I did the thing that New Yorkers do when I moved to Atlanta, and so I live right outside of Atlanta, and there's like a few, like, vinyl bars where they're just spinning vinyl. I have a friend that I grew up with who's been a DJ for 40 years, and he's spinning vinyl regularly now, and it's a beautiful vibe, man. It's just a good vibe. It's good to get out and, as they say, touch grass. But in your case, load film.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Atlanta do you live? What part? Because I lived there for 6 months.
I'm in Douglasville, so about 30 minutes west of due west on the I-20.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. There was an interesting music scene there, wasn't there, for a while?
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, if you're going to be if you're a hip hop guy and you're going to be in another city, you might as well be in Atlanta. So yeah, so it's not bad. And again, as a cocky New Yorker, every other city sucks, but Atlanta's okay. Atlanta's a vibe.
That sounds fucking like a true New Yorker. New Yorkers who move to LA are the worst, absolutely the worst. But because they always miss New York so much.
I can imagine.
But they never go back.
No, I will not. I will never go. I visit all the time. I still have business. Right. I run back and forth, but I'm perfectly happy where I am. It's nice. I'm here. I'm here now.
Nice.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for spending this time with me. Again, for sharing this work with us. I think, like I say, I know so many people that are so passionate about the idea of archiving, the genre and the culture, and this is an important piece of that. And so, like I said, it is, fun project, something that to do and put it all together and put it out there. But I think it's very valuable, and I appreciate the work.
Thank you. I've said to people before, it sounds a bit stuck up to say it's a piece for the ages, and I really don't think of myself in that way, but it is. It would disappear. People wouldn't have this material, and I'm glad to be able to just put it out there in the world, and for posterity, if nothing else. But thanks, mate. Let's keep in touch.
Yeah, please do, and let me know when the doc drops. I'd love to see it and amplify it as well. Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, hang on 1 second before you go.
Oh no, we're hanging on. We're hanging on. Okay.
Hang on 1 second.
I did the thing, didn't I? I did the thing.
You almost did the thing.